Welcome to our deep dive into the world of digital minimalism. So we're going to be cracking open Cal Newport's Digital Minimalism. We're going to explore what this philosophy is all about, why it matters so much, especially now in our, tech-saturated world, and most importantly, how you can actually use it to improve your life.
Yeah, I think it's really all about taking back control. I think these days it feels like we're all caught up in this unexpected arms race with technology, as Newport puts it.
An arms race.
Uh,
Okay, I'm intrigued.
yeah, so think about it. When Steve Jobs first introduced the iPhone, it was presented as this sleek iPod that could make calls. Nobody, not even Jobs himself, could have predicted we'd be glued to these devices the way we are today.
It's true. And back in 2004, I remember college students were using Facebook to connect with classmates, maybe share some photos. And now, fast forward to now, it's not uncommon to see people spending 2 hours or more scrolling through social media every day.
Exactly. And these changes happen so quickly. It's like we never really had a chance to adapt or set boundaries, and while we were busy trying to figure things out, tech companies were mastering the art of behavioral addiction.
Hold on. Behavioral addiction. How does that play into this?
Well, Newport explains how these companies are actually using psychology to keep us hooked. It's like a slot machine,
Yeah.
with intermittent positive reinforcement. You post something, you get a like, you share something, you get a comment. It's that unpredictable reward that keeps you coming back for more.
So we're all basically lab rats
Yeah.
in this giant social experiment.
In a way, yes. And this point is really driven home by Tristan Harris. He's a former Google product philosopher.
Yeah.
And he realized that minimizing distractions actually went against their profit model. Pretty thought-provoking, right?
Yeah. It definitely makes you question who's really in control. I think it's so interesting how Newport contrasts this with how the Amish approach technology. It's like a totally different mindset. It's not that they're anti-technology, but they're so incredibly careful about what they allow into their lives.
Yeah, and what I find fascinating about the Amish is they really flip the script on how we typically adopt technology. Instead of just blindly chasing the newest gadget, they actually stop and ask, does this tool actually benefit our community and align with our values?
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, they simply reject it.
Yeah, I love their trial period approach. It's like they have someone test out a new technology, and the entire community observes its impact. It's such a powerful model for making intentional choices about technology. Do you think we could apply a similar approach to our own lives?
Absolutely. I think it starts by, asking ourselves which technologies genuinely serve us and which ones are merely distractions disguised as progress. It's a question we all need to be asking ourselves. And it leads us to another important concept from the book, solitude deprivation.
Solitude deprivation. That sounds almost ominous.
Yeah, it's kind of a fancy way of saying we rarely spend time alone with our thoughts these days, with smartphones always within reach. And this constant stream of notifications, we've gone from occasional interruptions to continuous distraction.
I can see how that would happen. But what's the real impact of this constant connectivity?
Well, research shows that the average person checks their smartphone 85 times a day and spends over 3 hours on screen time daily. It's no wonder we're feeling so mentally drained and scattered.
3 hours a day. Wow, I hadn't really thought about it like that. So are you saying this constant connectivity is actually harming us?
I think it's definitely a contributing factor to the, rising rates of anxiety and depression, especially among young people who have kind of grown up in this hyper-connected world.
Hmm.
The consequences are becoming increasingly clear.
This makes me think about the flip side, the power of solitude. Newport talks about Abraham Lincoln retreating to a cottage during the Civil War and finding that quiet space essential for, leading the nation through such a turbulent time. Do you think that's what's missing for many of us today? That space for quiet reflection?
Absolutely. Solitude fuels creativity, problem solving,
Hmm.
self-discovery. Even thinkers like Thoreau, Martin Luther King Jr., Nietzsche, they all recognize the immense value of solitude for different reasons. But the underlying principle is the same. Solitude allows us to think clearly and deeply. It's a powerful tool that's sadly underutilized in our modern world.
So how do we reclaim solitude in a world designed to distract us? Does Newport offer any practical advice for actually incorporating more solitude into our lives?
He does. He suggests some deceptively simple yet powerful practices, like leaving your phone at home for short periods, taking long walks, just like those historical figures we mentioned, even something as simple as journaling.
I have to admit the idea of leaving my phone behind, even for a short time, makes me a little anxious. But maybe that's a sign I need to try it.
Yeah, it's definitely outside most people's comfort zones, but Newport assures us it's far less debilitating than we might think.
That's encouraging. What about the other practices like walking and journaling? How do those help us reclaim solitude?
Well, think about it. Walking, especially in nature, gives your mind space to wander. Process thoughts without the usual digital distractions. Nietzsche actually believed that walking was key to generating original ideas. And journaling, whether you prefer a physical notebook like Cal Newport or a digital app, helps you sort through your thoughts and emotions, foster a deeper connection with yourself.
This conversation is making me realize just how much my digital habits have shaped my relationship with solitude, or rather the lack thereof. It's definitely something I need to explore further.
Yeah, it's a journey we all need to take. And it connects beautifully with the next theme in the book, the difference between conversation and connection.
Okay, conversation versus connection. I'm listening. What's the distinction?
So Newport defines conversation as that rich, nuanced, face-to-face interaction that we crave as humans. It's the kind of interaction that builds real connection and community. Connection, on the other hand, is that shallow, often one-click interaction we have on social media. It's more about broadcasting than true engagement.
I see the difference now. But are you saying social media is inherently bad? I mean, it does help me stay connected with friends and family who live far away.
It's not about labeling social media as good or bad. It's about recognizing that there's a trade-off. As we spend more time in that low-value connection on social media, we often have less time and energy for high-value conversation in real life.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've definitely noticed how easy it is to get sucked into, scrolling and commenting online. And then suddenly hours have gone by and I haven't actually talked to anyone in person.
Exactly. And that can create this false sense of social fulfillment. We feel connected online, but meanwhile, our deeper relationships might be suffering. It's a trap that many of us fall into without even realizing it.
So how do we break free from this trap? If we want to prioritize real conversation, where do we even begin?
Well, Newport suggests some bold practices, starting with ditching the like buttons and comments altogether.
Wow, that does seem pretty drastic. Are you saying I should never like a friend's photo or leave a comment again?
It might sound extreme, but there's a powerful logic behind it. By removing those quick-hit dopamine rewards, you're sending a strong signal to your brain that thoughtful conversation is what truly matters, not those fleeting online interactions.
Okay, I'm starting to see the value in that. It's like reclaiming your attention and redirecting it towards more meaningful engagement. What other strategies does he suggest?
Another practice is consolidating your texting. Designate specific times for checking and responding to messages. Rather than constantly interrupting your day to respond to every ping, it's about reclaiming your focus and prioritizing deeper interactions.
So it's about creating boundaries around technology and being more intentional with how we use it. This all ties back to the theme of being more mindful, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And that mindful approach extends beyond just our devices. It also applies to how we choose to spend our leisure time. Newport calls this cultivating high-quality leisure.
High quality leisure. I like the sound of that. What exactly does that mean?
It's about choosing activities that are truly engaging and enriching, rather than defaulting to passive consumption. That often leaves us feeling empty. Newport highlights individuals like Pete Adeny, better known as Mr. Money Mustache, who finds immense joy in hands-on activities like carpentry, weight training, and even welding.
Oh, I've heard of Mr. Money Mustache. He's all about financial independence and living intentionally. It makes sense that he'd approach his leisure time with the same mindset. What about other examples? Does Newport mention anyone else who embodies this idea of high-quality leisure?
He does. There's Liz Thames from the Frugalwoods blog. She dedicates her free time to gardening, raising chickens, and even making her own soap. These aren't just hobbies. They're active, engaging pursuits that connect her to the physical world and bring her a sense of accomplishment.
Those are such great examples. They really paint a picture of what it looks like to truly engage with your free time instead of just letting it slip away. It makes you question your own leisure activities, doesn't it?
Exactly. It's about asking yourself, are my leisure activities passive or active? Do they energize me or leave me feeling depleted? Digital minimalism encourages us to be more intentional about how we spend our leisure time, choosing activities that nourish us rather than drain us.
So, how do we go about choosing these high-quality leisure activities? Does Newport provide any guidance for identifying activities that are truly enriching?
He does. He introduces a fascinating concept from writer Arnold Bennett called the Bennett Principle. It states that the value you get from a pursuit is proportional to the energy you invest in it.
Oh, I like that. So the more we invest in an activity, the more we get out of it. It seems counterintuitive, but it makes sense when you think about it.
Yeah.
We often assume leisure should be effortless. But maybe true fulfillment comes from putting in the effort and challenging ourselves.
Exactly. True leisure isn't about zoning out in front of a screen. It's about actively engaging in something that requires skill, effort, and maybe even a little bit of struggle. Think about Pita Dini learning to weld. It wasn't easy, but the satisfaction of mastering that skill was immense.
So it's not just about choosing any activity, it's about finding activities that truly resonate with us, that we're willing to put in the time and effort to master. Are there any other guidelines for choosing high-quality leisure activities?
Newport suggests we focus on activities that 1. Demand effort and skill like Pete Edney's welding. 2. Connect us to the physical world just like Liz Timm's gardening. And 3. Involve real-world structured social interaction.
That last one, the social interaction piece, is interesting. I think it ties back to our earlier conversation about the importance of conversation. Are there specific examples of activities that fulfill this social element of high-quality leisure?
Absolutely. We've already talked about places like snakes and lattes, board game cafes, where people come together for focused, engaging social interaction. But there are other great examples too, like CrossFit and F3 workouts.
Oh, that's a good point. Those fitness communities offer a shared goal and structure. That fosters a strong sense of camaraderie and belonging. It's not just about the workout, it's about connecting with other people in a meaningful way.
Exactly. It's about finding activities that challenge us physically, mentally, and socially. Activities that bring us together with other people in a real and meaningful way.
So it's not just about limiting our screen time. It's about replacing those low-value digital activities with high-quality, engaging activities that actually make us feel alive. But this all sounds great in theory. How do we actually make this shift in our lives? How do we break free from the grip of the attention economy and reclaim our time and focus for these more meaningful pursuits?
Well, that's where the idea of an attention resistance movement comes in. It's about pushing back against the constant demands for our attention and reclaiming control over how we spend our time and energy.
Okay, attention resistance. I'm listening. Tell me more about this movement.
Well, you have to remember that companies like Facebook and Google have built their entire business models around capturing our attention. They want us glued to their platforms for as long as possible.
Right. It's all about eyeballs and ad revenue.
Yeah.
But how do we resist this powerful pull? Do we have to completely abandon social media?
Not necessarily. It's more about using these platforms critically and consciously. What if instead of mindlessly scrolling, we limited our Facebook use to just 20 or 40 minutes a week, as Newport suggests?
Would that really make a difference?
It could be a major disruption to their bottom line. It's about sending a clear message that we're not just passive consumers of their attention-grabbing tactics. We're choosing to reclaim our time and attention. So there are a few different strategies you can use to join the attention resistance.
So what are some of those strategies? How do we start putting up these resistance walls?
Well, one approach is to dumb down your phone. This could mean switching to a simpler device, like the light phone, which is designed for calls and texts but avoids the addictive features of smartphones. Or try turning your devices into single-purpose computers. There are tools like Freedom that can block internet access for set periods, allowing you to focus on specific tasks without distractions.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
When I really need to focus on writing, I found that blocking distractions is essential for getting into a flow state.
Exactly. It's about creating those boundaries and taking back control of your attention. Newport also suggests using social media like a professional. This means carefully selecting specific groups or communities you want to engage with and limiting the time you spend on these platforms.
So it's not about cutting out social media entirely. It's about being more intentional with how we use it. Instead of passively consuming whatever pops up in our feed, we're choosing to engage with specific content and communities that align with our values and interests.
Precisely. And finally, there's the slow media movement. This movement emphasizes quality and intentionality over speed and quantity. It's a European concept that contrasts with the American approach to information consumption, which often feels like this endless fire hose of news and updates.
Slow media, huh? I like the sound of that. What does that look like in practice?
It's about savoring information, engaging with it deeply, and being more selective about the sources we trust. Choosing a few high-quality sources of news and information, rather than trying to keep up with the constant stream of updates from every corner of the internet.
Yeah, it's like choosing a gourmet meal over fast food. It might take a bit more effort, but the experience is far more satisfying and nourishing in the long run.
Exactly. Now, knowing all of these different strategies is one thing, but actually putting them into practice is another. How do we bridge that gap? How do we actually create a lifestyle that prioritizes these digital minimalism principles?
That's the million-dollar question, right? We can have all the knowledge in the world, But if we don't apply it, it doesn't really do us any good.
Right, so Newport offers a simple but effective system for making these changes stick. He suggests creating a seasonal leisure plan.
Seasonal leisure plan. Never heard of that before. What's that all about?
It's about planning your free time with the same intentionality that you would plan your work week. Start by identifying a few key objectives and habits you want to focus on for the upcoming season. Do you want to read more books? Spend more time outdoors? Learn a new skill? Write them down.
So instead of just letting our free time drift by, we're actually taking control and shaping it to align with our values and goals. I like this proactive approach.
Yeah, and once you have your overall plan, break it down into weekly schedules detailing specific actions and when you'll do them. It's about creating a roadmap for your leisure time, just as you would for a work project.
I can see how that would help with accountability. It's one thing to say, I want to spend more time outdoors, but it's another thing to actually schedule those hikes or bike rides into your week. It makes it more concrete and actionable.
Exactly. And to ensure you stay on track, Newport emphasizes the importance of regularly reviewing and reminding yourself of your leisure plans. You know, life gets busy and it's easy to let those good intentions fall by the wayside.
Oh, I know. I'm definitely guilty of that. I have the best intentions, but then life happens, and suddenly those plans are out the window. A regular review process would help with that, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. It's like having a personal trainer for your leisure time, helping you stay motivated and accountable to your goals.
This has been an incredibly eye-opening deep dive into the world of digital minimalism. What are some of the core takeaways that stand out to you?
For me, it boils down to a few key principles. Being intentional with our technology use, choosing how and when we engage with it rather than letting it control us. Reclaiming solitude, recognizing that time alone with our thoughts is essential for creativity, problem solving, and overall well-being. Prioritizing real-world conversation over superficial online connection. And lastly, cultivating a high-quality leisure life, one that is active, engaging, and aligned with our values.
Those are fantastic takeaways. This deep dive has really given me a lot to think about, especially in terms of how I can be more mindful of my technology use and make more conscious choices about how I spend my time and energy.
That's what it's all about. It's not about becoming a Luddite or throwing away our devices. It's about finding a balance that allows technology to enhance our lives without controlling them.
I think that's a great way to put it. So for anyone listening who's feeling overwhelmed by the digital world and craving a more intentional way of living, what's one piece of advice you would offer? Where should they start?
You know, start small. Choose just one practice from this deep dive that resonates with you. Maybe it's leaving your phone at home for an hour each day, or scheduling a weekly tech-free evening. The key is to start somewhere. Take that first step toward reclaiming your attention and your life.
I love that advice. It's about progress, not perfection. We don't have to overhaul our entire lives overnight. Even small, consistent changes can have a ripple effect, leading to a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
Exactly. It's a journey, not a destination.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of digital minimalism. Until next time, remember to be present, be intentional, and be kind to yourself.